I bounced off Lost Ark.
I actually bounced off Lost Ark for the first bit. Yeah, I really did, and I was kind of surprised about that. But now, a good few more hours later, no, I'm actually in. I'm more than in, I'm very on board. It's an interesting game, and it's an odd game in how it starts. I have a feeling a lot of people will have just sort of thought, whoa, what's going on? And then, a few things happen, you notice a few things, and you're just in there for the experience.
I feel like the story didn't get good until the siege. Like, until you meet Thirain, the story is like, oh, well, there's a buzzard over there, and there's a crazy old woman, and she doesn't know anything, but she knows how to summon the secret city. You gotta go over there. It's like the story was just, it was a spoiler. Well, you know what? Too bad. You're watching a video, it's a review of the game, that's what you get. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't play the beta. I didn't play the Russian version.
I played the beta a little bit.
I didn't play the Korean version. I didn't do any of those things. I was going in straight up, like most of you, as an entirely brand new player. And very initially, I was actually very impressed. Now, there are some downsides that come with the territory, like the gender lock classes, stuff like that. Yeah, sure, whatever. It's a Korean game. It is what it is. Where I first started to think, oh, okay, this is kind of snazzy, is actually the very start of the game where I walk across the big sort of cosmic bridge. Oh, and the camera moves. And the scale is actually incredible. The scale's maybe more incredible than I'm used to in games like that.
Well, it's like, the thing is with, as I said, this is something with like Eastern games, and it's also with like Path of Exile 2, is like the scale and like the cosmic proportion of the game is just completely fucking out of control. It's like you fight a boss and then, okay, so all right, you're gonna fight a boss, he's on the moon, right? Well, okay, in the second phase, he blows up the moon. And so you have to get on a spaceship from the exploding moon, and you have to follow the dragon through space, shooting lasers at the dragon in space. And then you hit the dragon, one of his wings falls off, he collapses into a volcano. You have to climb down the volcano, fighting also the volcano dragons that live there organically, kill all of them, then get to the center of the dragon's lair inside of the internal volcano, and you fight him, and he's too powerful, so you have to call down a nuclear blast from a satellite that blows them up. It's like there's never a sense of like, is this believable? Is there any sense of realism here? No, that's out the window. No, bro, that's out the fucking window. Like, there's no, like, nah, man. It's like this is the coolest shit you could possibly think of. All right, this is what we're gonna do.
I'm thinking, okay, this is going somewhere.
Yeah, I love the intro too.
And then I have to choose my advanced class. I think
you played a girl character, dude. No, you ever played a girl character. Oh shit, man. Oh man. Wow. Good one, Mike. Oh jeez. You played a girl.
A lot of the people for Lost Ark, a lot of us actually chose our advanced class before the game.
I picked the Shadowhunter.
But quite different from what I understand to the intro experience otherwise, like starting off at level 10 with your advanced class. Bam, here's 6 buttons. It can be a little bit sort of confusing, a bit overwhelming for those of us who didn't 100% research the game beforehand.
I think that's definitely true. Like in the very beginning of the game, it can be extremely overwhelming how many spells and skills you get all at the same time. Like I would definitely say that. Because it's like, wait, what the fuck? Like, all of this shit's happening all at the same time. Like, oh my god. It's a lot. Just spam them? Well, that's not how you play the game. That's not how you get good at the game.
In terms of, like, researching, not what it is, but play strategies, guides, all of that. Anyway, I go through that. And it's time for the prologue. And I initially start to feel a bit weird about the prologue because I see a massive skip prologue button. And that just makes me think, what? But I'm like, oh, this world is kind of rich, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, lush, vivid. The general world design, map design is surprisingly solid. And then, I'm able to hit the G key to do things like jump or to navigate across a little thing.
Yeah.
Then I kind of think to myself, oh shit, hang on. Those are animations they didn't have to do. And yeah, it's just playing a canned animation, but it's a bit more immersive. It's a bit more fantastical. Nice.
Well, yeah, it seems like they put a lot of effort into those little things, and those little things do matter a lot. Yeah, the G key, yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, all of those little small changes and improvements, those are things that people remember, and it makes it feel better.
Voice acting hits me, though. Yeah, it kind of sounds like the voice acting was done on Fiverr with not really that many revisions.
The voice acting sucks.
At the start. The VO actually does, at least for the English localization, improve
That's all
later
there is
on.
to it.
Though, broadly speaking, one of the things that still I'm a little bit iffy on is the quality of that localization.
It's not the best.
Stiff, if I was to use one word. Right? Just the way that characters talk. Because, of course, when you're localizing from one language into the other, it can be quite hard to keep a character's, like, tone. So I think if this game has been localized in the middle of the pandemic with, you know, remote working and stuff like that, it's probably made those voicing sessions not be as effective. So at the start, it's a bit like, whoa, who's this guy? What's that guy? Whoa, it's Morpheus!
Yeah.
And you're a little bit confused. You're a little bit off kilter. It's very start-stop in its gameplay.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And then, though, you do
There's
get
a lot
some
of
cooler
shit
things,
that happens.
right? Some cooler set pieces. And that's when I start to think to myself, okay, you know, this is obviously a game with a surprisingly big budget. This is a game that's done pretty well.
Yeah.
It's actually really putting some effort in. Now, for the initial part, I'm kind of thinking you put a lot of effort in, but why is the script really flat? Why are the set pieces, you know, why is it just paced the way that it is? Why have you thrown me into this world where I actually don't understand much at this point? You know, what is the role of my character? A lot of that, like, player onboarding experience felt a bit rough, and I'm just sort of thinking to myself, okay, this is odd. I'm confused. Then, though, I reach the first town, and I start to feel actually a little bit more
See, the first town
placed
here looks
in this
fucking
world.
amazing. Like, I love the way this looks. I'm a huge fan of this. I think this is amazing. It looks really, really good. Even the cinematics, they're small, but they do matter.
And that's something that's going to really increase as I get toward the end. But it's time for my first foray into the world. And this is initially where things are jarring, because it went against my expectations. Quests are super short. Side quests are super short. In fact, little dynamic quests can just spawn in when you're running through the world. And initially, I started to be a little bit like, oh, what is up with this stop-start gameplay? I'm not really sure what I should be expecting here. Then it started to throw me into some of those little solo dungeons. And those start to be a little bit better.
That's the best content so far for me. Is that the one thing that I really enjoy with the game more than anything else is the solo dungeons and the solo content. That is the best shit to me.
And then very slowly what happens is I begin to just get into the rhythm, get into the pace. And I suppose that's the thing. Ultimately, this is a Korean MMO being localized over to the West.
Yep.
Clearly there's some things that are just a little bit different. And once my own expectations sort of actually matched the pacing of the game, what I found was, even when I was still thinking, I'm not sure what to think about this, I had this one more quest thing going on. And I'm sure you've had it as well.
Yeah, you just keep going.
As you progress through those zones, you just kind of want to go to the next marker, kill the guys, keep on going. It ends up...
Well, I think another reason for that is because the quests, like, let's be honest, guys, the quests are fucking easy. Like, they are fucking easy. Like, 9 times out of 10, the quests are a joke. And so because of that, it's like, oh, I'll just do another one. I'll just do another one. It's take a little bit of time. But also, like, people want to do another one because they get a chance to have more combat opportunities. That's the main thing.
Quite a Moorish experience to go through. Especially then, as you start to unlock just 1 or 2 of the extra abilities, and you can start to properly customize your character out a little bit. And that's before the engravings even come in. Right? So it's slowly growing on me. Now, through this entire time, even when I was a little bit lost in the game, the one thing was just those spell effects and that combat feel. Because that's the one thing they've really got right for the type of game that it is. And I mean this on the, initially, the most base surface level.
Okay.
Because there's the back attacks and there's the weak points and there's all of the depth that actually does exist in this combat system. That is why when you later get into dungeons and when you know, when you look...
I also like how loot just drops on the ground and it's shiny. Like, one thing that feels good in the game is getting loot. Like, for example, Diablo 3 did this really well. Like, if you kill a Rift Guardian, or you finish a Rift, like, it's like the game, it's like they bust a nut of purple items on you, or they bust a nut of orange or like green items on you, and you just see the whole thing, and that's the way it feels. It's like the kill boss, like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like, then it pops out, and you see all the loot go up there, you see all the names, like, oh, that's a belt, oh, what? And you're excited to see it, man. That's what it's about.
People say about the, well, I think especially the T3 content, but as you move through the raid content, you can see there's a lot of depth in the combat. But the very basic game feel is just great. A bunch of dudes come at you, and you just get to tear them to shreds. And certainly as a Shadowblade, or a Shadowhunter, I just found all of my buttons were satisfying. And then especially as I unlocked more buttons, they became super, super satisfying. So it has that pretty good thing going on where you're consistently getting more loot. The player fantasy is generally, quite strong. You feel quite powerful. You do cool things. But even when all those things were true for me, I wasn't properly into the game, because with some of the stiff dialogue, the inconsistent quality voice acting, there was just some things taking me out of the experience, in addition to the UI being just a little bit in my face. But this slowly begins to melt away.
You see, like, I never gave a fuck about, like, the shitty dialogue. Like, this is the best thing about, like, streaming a game, is that if you stream a game and the game sucks, that doesn't matter. Because it's content if it's good, and it's content if it's bad. The only time it's not content is if it's mediocre. So, like, whenever, for example, like, the guy is like, and then he says a whole sentence, that's funny, right? But if the dialogue's just boring, then who gives a shit?
Now, very initially, you're playing with, sort of mostly you're questing around with the priest character. And he's cool enough, right? Where it really starts to get good, though, is when we actually get properly into essentially the power struggle. The power struggle for, just for that kingdom. And I think there's a moment. There is a moment where Lost Ark
30 minutes till the game goes live.
A lot of people. For me, there's really two moments.
That's so fucked up. Bellular's going to talk about how whenever the horse dies, that's whenever things get fun. You really going to do this?
2.1. The 0.1 is actually just the first proper
multiplayer
dungeon that I go into. Because I do a boss there, and it's like, okay, this feels pretty good.
Yeah.
The first moment, though, truly the first moment, was the Morai Dungeon. That dungeon is great.
Oh, wow.
And that is where the game started to impress me.
Damn.
The scale, right? And I'm sure so many of you who have actually jumped into the game have felt this as well.
Yeah.
The sheer scale in that dungeon
That's what I said too.
It's just so much bigger than what you've seen before in the game. And you keep on going, and it's a long dungeon, and it's a fun dungeon. You're doing decently varied things as you're going through it. The boss fight where, the dude walks in and then all the warriors just, like, sort of march in your party. Yeah. And they sort of slowly constrict the play space. That is a really cool boss. It's
Wait, they restrict the play
crazy
space?
thing in the world, but just the way that it's executed is fantastic.
Wait,
and then just all those times where, you hit the G key to do some vaguely interesting movement. And
that was really cool too. Yeah, I didn't even know that happened. Yeah, I had no fucking idea any of that happened. I just went in there and I was like, okay, so I just basically I'm a big berserker. You see the sword? Well, we swing that around and, see what happens. Yeah, I just whirlwind him down. I didn't even think about it. I didn't even care at all about the mechanics.
While that's not mechanically mega interesting, it's quite fantastical, isn't it? It just makes the fantasy work.
And also, like, another thing to keep in mind with Lost Ark is, like, this is, I'm going to contrast it with New World, is that whenever you're in this dungeon, like, if this was New World, the NPCs, the first guys would be the skeletons that go like this, and then the second guys would be the skeleton archers, and then the boss would be one of the big skeleton that goes like this, and then the last boss would be one of the brutes, like, the big guys like... and he runs around, and that would be the whole thing. So yeah, the variety in the NPCs and the way that they behave and everything like that, it makes you feel like you're really progressing through the game. It's Dupe World. Yeah, do I still have the picture? Yeah, there you go. There it is.
And it's that little bit of extra effort. And Smilegate continually use that they can just use the G key to get you to do some sort of animation to get
Yeah.
somewhere. They continually
It's like your
do
extra
that,
action
trying to
button.
make their play spaces just more varied, more interesting. And I
Yeah.
really appreciated that. So I did that dungeon. I think I did it in the hard match-made difficulty.
He didn't.
Big old
No way.
splash loot at the end. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, the game's finally... it's
Yeah,
finally
no,
dug
it
its
was
teeth.
on normal.
I finally feel it. I finally feel how I could be doing a whole bunch of these dungeons at the end game and really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So that was the first point where the game truly, truly clicked for me. But then, the bit of the game clicked for me that I really didn't expect. And that was actually just
The story, right.
the main story. Now, I don't mean...
Look at that, man. I'm a fucking mind reader. I know what they're going to say before they say it. Look at that. Because I know how they... I pre-watched it. Yeah, I pre-watch every video. That way I have better commentary for it, okay? What can I say? Yeah, that's how big my brain is. I was laying in bed. Okay, what's he going to say here? All right, so I guess I should pause right now. Yeah, I'll pause right now and say true. You know, that's the kind of stuff.
this from the perspective of I'm suddenly thinking, wow, these are the most in-depth, interesting characters ever. No, I'm not saying that whatsoever. But as a vehicle for some fun set pieces, right? I mean, that's really what a lot of ARPG stories are. It started to work. So as I was just blasting through these zones, you sort of start to get that plot. You kind of get immersed into it. Now, the side quests, sometimes I did the side quests, sometimes I didn't.
I just always do the side quests because it's more experience. Like, why the fuck would I not do it? It gives me more points. I want more points. Give me more points. It's that simple.
I didn't feel that I needed to, and to be honest,
gives a shit?
To me it had seemed like the game where I just want to hit level 50 and really jump into that end game, really get into that super fun hard content.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is mostly my goal. But still, you know, I'm kind of learning things. I'm moving through a nice variety of zones, seeing some of the local plights. Then, of course, the prince character gets involved. Now it's you, the prince, and the priest off on your merry little adventure.
See, I had the same experience.
It actually does start to
really
work quite well. Now, the characters are just there as their archetypes. They act as you would expect, but...
I'll read a comment here in chat. Someone says, this guy is so out of touch with reality. A very high majority of players does not give a single crap about the story and not find it worthy of quitting a game over. Well, so, like, you're right, but you're not right at the same time. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people play through the game, and because the story isn't compelling, they are bored. So they're not quitting the game because the story isn't compelling. They're quitting the game because they're bored. So it's not like, oh, well, I don't like the story or whatever, because there is a lot of time in the game where you spend a lot of time like traveling, and you get the dungeons, which are really cool, but there's a lot of times where you're not in the dungeons. And that's how it goes. They're bored because the story is not compelling. No, exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. You're 100% wrong? No, I don't think so at all. I think that you can look at the popularity of games like Final Fantasy, the frustration with the WoW storyline, etc. I think that there's a lot of people who care about story in games. Like, whenever you say a lot, what does a lot mean? I don't know. But there are a good amount of people that I believe feel that way.
They're satisfying. They are a pretty good just vehicle for smashing things up. And where it really starts to hit is, of course, the siege. And the siege is the second
Bro, he says
big
the
thing.
same shit as I do.
And I mean, spoiler.
Oh my God.
Something you care about.
This is exactly it.
Lost Ark, but that's really as far as I really want to talk with the story. But that whole siege bit of the story,
this is fucking awesome.
Just fucking cool. As simple as that. And it's one of those moments where I thought, okay, this was just a grind ARPG, and, you know, to a degree it is going to be, but if it was just that, they probably wouldn't have bothered to make this so cool. And if it was just the sort of thing that people would write off, like, I don't know, a dungeon fighter online, you wouldn't expect it to have been that cool. But no, this sense of scale is there. And I was really impressed how they pulled it off. Like, from that bit where you climb up that siege tower, the camera starts to lift up, you feel some of that scale. It actually starts to feel epic, and then you combine that with just the sheer quantity of characters that are on screen. And then with how because of the way the combat system is designed, you know, you're constantly staggering enemies and you're staggering big groups of them and blasting them down with abilities that just feel so good to press.
Well, it's not just that, it's also how the camera shifts around. Because, like, you don't feel like, oh, you're just doing this one thing. Like, it's shifting from, like, here to here, from here to here, from here to here, here to here. There's, like, a top-down, you know, from, like, here to here. And, like, it changes a lot. This is basically, like, what I had wanted. Yeah, everybody said, this is the Siege of Warderon that we could have had.
It's really getting good.
And it's seamless.
So there you are,
too.
top the walls. You've got the character call-outs, you've got really just nice set-piece stuff,
20 minutes,
nice spectacle stuff, way above the production values that I would have expected. I mean, you know, you look at... when you think about games, and you think about, oh, a great, high-quality set-piece, you don't think that an action RPG or a MMORPG, that they're really going to have that sort of thing. But actually, Lost Ark is quite evidently capable of doing that. And that, fundamentally, is actually quite exciting. And even just little things like, you know, power sliding your way down the chain.
Yeah, that was really cool.
To, you know, to get to the mages who are, you know...
And the thing is, like, whenever you do that, your character is immediately in the game. Like, the cinematic seamlessly transitions into the actual game. And I think that's what's really immersive about it. Is, like, you don't feel like it's a loading screen. Yep, with 20 minutes until the game comes out. That's right, boys. 20 minutes.
The big force field thingy in the door. That's just cool. They really nailed that siege.
Yeah, I agree.
I almost think it's a pity the game didn't start. I mean, there's obviously something to be said for pacing, but man, it's that second dungeon in that siege. They truly, truly grabbed me.
Yeah, it would have been cooler if you had a big moment like this earlier in the game, but it's like this is pretty early, even, you know, even where it is now.
Left feeling very satisfied after that.
Absolutely.
Now, of course, as you move through that siege, you then get into, you know, some of those solo boss fights, and it's funny. They consistently made me feel like such a dumbass purely because I kept on animation locking myself. Kept on animation locking myself into getting hit by stuff that should be so easy to not be hit by. And then also, I'm just so used to like, oh, spacebar is dodge, but actually, no, you do have a cooldown on that, and you have to manage your things decently well. But those fights are fun. In the same way that, to me, the Diablo boss fights were always, like, actually pretty fun in D3 and Reaper of Souls. They were fun to me in that way. And overall, at this point...
The boss fights are my favorite thing in the game. Like, I actually get mad whenever I kill a boss. Because now it's over. Like, we don't have another phase. Like, whenever I fought that dragon, and I just dumpstered him, it was like, well, now what? Well, now what? Like, I gotta wait fucking an hour to do another one of these?
I'm thinking, okay. It's bared its fangs and sort of sunk itself into my flesh, if that's the analogy that I'm going to go for. And it feels good. I feel gripped. I feel like I want to keep this character going. I want to get more power. I want to see more of those set pieces. See more of the dungeons that they have available.
Yeah, now
That's where the game finally clicked for me. About like level 25, 26, 27, 28. And then, of course... you unlock, you unlock the big city. Big city's pretty damn cool. And that's where I started to realize, oh shit. The game's actually opening up to me right now, isn't it?
Wow.
Because then I'm taken to my stronghold.
Wow.
And I go through the initial quest for the stronghold, and I'm thinking, okay. And then there's the engravings, there's all the other things. And I'm just thinking to myself, right, this game is expanding out. And then you, of course...
It certainly is expanding out, isn't it? Oh my god, yeah, it certainly does open up. The Moko cult, yeah, dude, I thought this was probably, like, the fact that they're in the heart and they're doing that, like, it was just, it was so fucking ridiculous. Wait a second.
Other things, and I'm thinking, oh, hold.
Oh, never mind. For a second, I thought he didn't have the heart around him. I thought they didn't give him the heart. But no, apparently I thought I was special for a second.
And I go through the initial quest for the stronghold, and I'm thinking, okay. And then there's the engravings, there's all the other things. And I'm just thinking to myself, right, this game is expanding out. And then you, of course, remember to right-click on the map enough that you see the multi-continent world map. And then you realize, bloody hell, Lost Ark is absolutely massive. And then, of course, I remember that at some point I'll be able to get a boat, go to different islands, and do things in the islands.
Yeah.
So it's a rather big game. It's a rather big game, and that is absolutely a strength of a game that, see, from what I understand, Lost Ark basically was a bit laughed at in Korea for a time, but they turned it around in the most spectacular fashion. And I think,
like, that's one thing I like about you see games like, there's like Final Fantasy is the best example. Another good example we've got here in America, we've got fucking, what was that shit where you fly around and nothing worked? No Man's Sky. Yeah, No Man's Sky. We've had that as well, and they just continuously made the game better. And that's what a lot of people like to see, is people want to see a redemption arc. People, unless it's Sylvanas, people want to see the, you know, the bad game get good. Because most of the people who hate the bad game hate it because they wish it was the good game. That's what I think.
Now we're at a situation where basically there's just so much content, so much development has went into this game. And in fact, there are really nice quality of life features that are going to be hitting the Korean version before they hit the Western version, that show that the devs are like really just clued in and get it. And then, of course, you think about Lost Ark Online, well, it's not called Lost Ark Online Live, whatever it is. Online. The sort of 7-hour, basically, big Yoshi P live stream style thing that they do. And then you start to think, oh, wait, shit. There seems to be pretty ample reason to have a lot of faith in this game. So that, at its essence, is the core of why I initially got a bit confused with Lost Ark. I didn't click. But then, through the quality of a bunch of that content and the core game feel being excellent, Lost Ark actually did click for me. And that does mean that I'm going to be continuing to play Lost Ark.
Smart guy. And that's the thing, is like, that's what happens with a lot of people, is that they get into the game and it's hard for them to really get into it, and they get first. You know what game that happened to me with was Valheim. Like, Valheim was like that. The first time I played Valheim, I'm gonna be honest, guys, I died to the deer. I died to Ecthir. And I quit the game. Because Izzy was playing the game, and she said that she beat the deer. And I played the game, and I couldn't beat the deer. And I'm like, is Pink Sparkles truly a better gamer than I am? And I went to bed. I went to bed. I was so upset. I was like, this is it. I'm done. I'm finished. I'm completed. I'm done. All right, let's keep going.
Now, in terms of what has piqued my interest, what's been of note to me, I think that real earnest effort that they make in the production value, I really like that.
So
and
that's
I think
Bellular's
as I
character.
go on to more and more modern content, it'll be benefiting from a higher budget, you know? Or just for more experience. They've shown me they can make real cool shit. And then that's in the very base starting experience. So I'm excited to see how that goes. That's one thing. The next thing then is combat. So yeah, Shadowhunter. Man, now that I've actually started to play around with my abilities, like, I haven't really found a build perfect yet, and I've purposefully, you know, I'm not looking up guides and things like that. I like to go into these games completely blind without research.
I did actually look up a small guide on engravings last night, and I watched it, and I don't understand it. But I understand it a little bit more. I understand like 10% or 20% of engravings. But like, I'm not going to look up any class guides really, or how to play, because like, I'll just keep going and popping off and doing what I want to do. You know, that's about it. I think here you are wrong. Some people work 8 to 9 to 10 hours a day, and then that's what 3 to 4 hours on queue. That's not an experience for 3 early access days. Wait, so what am I wrong about? What am I wrong? That like, I said it sucked that they had to delay it. Like, it sucked. Like, what do you want me to do? Yeah, I mean, what do you do? Like, I don't really give it. And that's what I said. It's like, if you work a job, if you have a job, you don't have a lot of time to play. I bet this sucks, right? Because maybe you set aside time and you can't do that. Definitely fucking sucks. But like, for me, it doesn't matter to me. I don't give a shit. I just play the next day. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can do. Just give me your PS5.
Well, it's not your job to know. No, actually, I'm not really doing guide content. I'm doing experiential content, and I want to see how these games are able to onboard me to their experience.
I actually feel like it's better content to not use a guide. It is usually better content to not use a guide, because whenever you use a guide, that means that you're not having the organic experience. Like, people want to see you go in raw. And whenever you're not going in raw and you're just like figuring everything else out, looking it up, doing everything hyper optimized, it's just fucking boring. Like, I'll go back to the Shadowlands release. My Shadowlands release stream would have been better if it was just me and McConnell fucking around in Discord instead of me trying to go for max level realm first. It would have been better, even though I got 60 faster. Making content is not the same as, you know, being, you know, better or whatever in the game. That's the way I see it. But normies love it? No, normies don't love it because they watch it for fun. If normies loved it, then MDI streamers would get more than 90 viewers.
So as I play around with these, I'm beginning to think like, okay, there's really nice build diversity here. There are lots of satisfying buttons. And then with the tripods, you sort of fine-tune those abilities, and I found that to be very satisfying. Actually, for Shadowhunter, and have some of my ranged kits really fun. I then have the big one where, you know, you just transform into a massive demon and do 3 massive slashes.
I hate that
all
ability.
With spectacular sound.
One of the things that's hard for me to get used to in this game is the fact that the red circles don't snapshot. Because in Final Fantasy, you're trained to red circles and red abilities, the moment that they disappear, they snapshot. And like in Lost Ark, that's not how it works. It's just an indicator and then the attack occurs.
And spectacular visual effects, which, by the way, you can tone down for other players in the settings. And certainly there are times where I would recommend toning down other people's spell effects just because, you know, it could get pretty intense. I mean, even in FF14, that's something that I do. So that core combat feel is something that right now I'm really just meshing with.
Yeah.
And I can imagine the PvP in this game absolutely banging. So that seems like a very, very exciting thing.
Yeah,
and I can't remember if the game was Battle Right, but I just remember there was this brawler game that Total Biscuit liked. And I think, I don't know, for whatever reason, seeing his video on that all, you know, back in the day, it's just made me quite excited about the idea of PvP within an action RPG, which is something that's wholly new to me. Of course, I remember
PvP in an action ARPG is called League of Legends. It's called Dota. Like, it plays a lot the same. Like, it's not the exact same, right? Of course it's not the exact same. But, like, the actual combat, etc., you're playing an isometric game with characters that click to move, and you're using abilities that are keybound to certain keys on your keyboard. Obviously, there is like a million levels of nuance that I just completely threw in the garbage. Yes, I know that. However, there are a lot of people who just, you know, they look at League of Legends, they see this game, and they're like, okay, this is more similar. It's the same as, like, Final Fantasy and WoW are more similar than WoW and Lost Ark. And I think Lost Ark and, like, League of Legends or Heroes of the Storm or Path of Exile are all within that same general, like, umbrella of movement and gameplay.
People talking about PvP for Diablo 3, but that, like, didn't really materialize, did it? And then, of course, the Strongholds. Now, it's funny, the Strongholds are so much. Like, I do, you know, I see basically the mission table system. And that stuff's, you know, iffy to me, mixed, whatever. But I'm willing to believe they can actually do it pretty decently here. I know there's other interesting things that go on with those ships. But it does seem like there's a lot to keep you busy with the Strongholds. It also seems like the Strongholds, like, you know, as they go into crafting and all that, that all seems to be quite interesting. Again, for crafting, it's something that I've skipped because I really just want to hit level 50 and get into that level 50 content. But, you know, from the initial bit that it's...
See, I don't give a fuck about getting to level 50. Like, I'm going to get to level 50 when I get to level 50. Like, I'm not worried about it. Because I know I'm going to get there. Yeah, launch is delayed, guys. Launch is delayed.
Realized for me, I thought it looked kind of neat.
It's a 500-hour delay.
For me, there is just something about, with an isometric game, just doing crafting in that, or gathering even, it's kind of nostalgic to me because of my time playing RuneScape as a kid. So, the Strongholds seem really cool.
The two-man
I want to customize that more.
Cool.
I've seen a lot of pretty cool customizations that people have done, so I really like that. This core level up flow, I'm really enjoying. Now that I'm actually customizing my abilities, I really appreciate what they're doing on the Shadowhunter, and I'm finding it to be really enjoyable. And I think the game is opening itself up and showing a sense of scale that actually... Matt described hitting that big city after the siege as, I think he called it mental waterboarding. Just because, like, he was, getting the engravings and then getting the strongholds, and it's like, holy shit.
That's why I quit that one day. Like, that's why I quit. I was so tired. I'm like, oh my God, I've got to go lay down. This is insane, man. Look at all this stuff I got to do. Like, I have to do the stronghold, and then I got to do the other stuff. Oh my God.
I am being waterboarded with game mechanics. Now, that could come off as being a little bit too strong, but I think purely based on the back of how bloody cool that siege was, I'm in. So that's my first impressions of Lost Ark. I think that the visual presentation is generally fantastic. It's a lovely, rich world to be in, so I'm really happy with the visual presentation. The combat, I'm really, really, really enjoying. The dungeons, especially the second dungeon that I did, are fantastic. They show a level of ambition and scale that is way beyond what I actually expected from a game like this. And then just for the broad game systems, it seems like there's a massive amount there. And then in terms of my faith in the game and faith in the development team, well, number one, we've got the story of its turnaround in the...
You don't need any faith. You know what's going to come out. You know what it's going to be. Like, this is why I was positive about the game, is because the game had already come out before. So, like, what do I need to think about? What do I need to worry about? Nothing, man, because I just have that. Like, I know what it's going to be already. Watch Stoops' video on gearing in-game. I'll probably watch the Stoops video after this, okay, guys?
Korean market. So that gives you a lot of faith. Then there's the quality of the large presentations that the development team do. There is how the development team has generally been quite honest about the mistakes that they've made, and how, I looked at some of the changes that are coming up in the Korean version, and they really seem to be good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of sitting there thinking, oh, darn, I wish they were here in the Western version, which is, in a way bad, but I think more importantly, overall very good. It shows the core development team get it, and obviously that's just a... they're not being perfect feature parity. That's just something that comes with the territory of a game that is being localized into other territories. I would like to change my voice acting to Korean and give that a spin. They did tweet as of 2 hours ago. I think there was a bug with that because I changed mine to Korean. And
I never understand this whenever people want to do that. I just don't get it. As I said this before, like, I do not understand why people want to watch, like, listen to something that it's more immersive. How's it immersive reading text on a screen? I don't know. Like, it's just not... English voice acting's horrible. That's a good point. That is a good point, yeah.
Basically all the sound effects broke. I think that's fixed now, so I'll have to jump in and see what the Korean is like. Perhaps the performances are more engaging there. And again, it's... even another thing that comes from South Korea, in fact, Squid Game. It's really strange where the... basically the subs on Squid Game are like nowhere near as good as the actual script for Squid Game, especially as it would be, like as a Korean person watching it in Korea would find it. So I think it could just be a better, more fun experience swapping over to the Korean VO, but of course with English subs. So that's essentially my Lost Ark experience. I'm in. I don't really know what else there is to say. I'll do an update video probably when I hit max level or just when there's something else notable to say. But essentially that is how the game lost me initially and why, how it won me back again, and now how I'm thinking, okay, this has got legs, this has got promise, I'm excited, I am in.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people, like, people have gotten burned. I think there's, how many of y'all have gotten burned from New World? How many of y'all got burned from Shadowlands? How many people got burned from, these other different games? And so, like, these games come out and it's like they're fucked up, they don't work properly, etc. And it's just frustrating for a lot of people. So it would make sense that that's not what it is. Burned by any video game, to be honest. Well, yeah, people want to just play a game, Mortal Online. Yeah, people just, like, everybody is expecting... They're expecting the game to be bad. Basically, that's where we're at. They're expecting it to be bad.
So what's your Lost Ark experience been?
It's good.
Let me know down below, and I suppose
good
that's
game.
it for the video. Enjoy, have fun, and I'll see you next time.
It do be good game. That true.